is forward of my left kote as I hold it. So whenever you hold a sword, as you know, left hand's behind, right hand's in front. So when we cross on the omote side, or the left side of the sword, this is the closest target area for him to try to take. And so all swordsmen try to cross their swords on this side if at all possible. So in order to make me move this wrist back, he lifts the sword and cuts sideways toward my kote and toward my body. As he does, I shuffle back just to try to avoid the sword just with a few inches so that I can try to cut his kote as well. So once again, as we're here, as he takes this broad do cut, this yoko, this side cut, I move my foot back, pulling my hip to try to avoid his entire cut and raise the jodan. At this point, make sure your sword stops. If you're shitachi, you want to stop the sword just outside of my body. You don't want it to go too far. It opens up your wrists and your body too much. So it goes just past my hip. My next cut is right here. So he's actually baiting me to take that cut. Okay? So from here, I'm going to step in. Once, just after this passes, timing-wise, I'm going to step in and try to cut diagonally and take his wrist off. As I do, he pulls his right hip back and keeps the kisaki, the tip, right on my face. So if I try to come in, he's got control of that. So he's really controlling my entire body right now. I try to stop my sword right outside his hip, and that's when he comes around in a large cut and takes my wrist. So he's cutting through my body, but I have to move just slightly so I can't get cut with the kisaki, and the monouchi then takes my right wrist. Then he gives a little thrust as if he's going to push, it'll slice my wrist. If he pushes it all and slices, it'll slice my wrist. To try to prevent that, I try to move with that thrust so I can't be pushed through with his kisaki. So he pushes, and I move. Then I lower my sword. He maintains control and come back to a neutral position. We come back to center, cross swords once again, and perform your noto.
Hey!
Hey!
Yo! Hey!
Hey!
Yo!
It's important that as a swordsman, you also realize that there are going to be times when perhaps you don't have a sword and the opponent does. This is we call that Mutodori, and muto means no sword. And so in this segment, we're going to teach you a technique of how to prevent someone from performing a nukisuke, a drawing cut, as he has no sword and the opponent does. So the thing to remember is if you step forward and draw the cut, in order for me to cut the body with the monouchi, the sword will always be close enough so that his hand can touch the opponent's hand. This is, no matter where I try to cut along this line, as long as I can cut his body, his hand can touch my hand. And this is critical when it comes time to do your Mutodori. In this drill, this will be Mutodori, sword-taking technique from a basic drawing cut. So we start off to practice this drill. You'll take a right foot step, hands come up, left foot step, and you start your draw. On the third step with the right foot, you'll notice that I'm trying to maintain my concentration on Shitachi's center line here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up and try to do a downward cut. Notice that he enters with the outside foot coming in just along my center line. And he's trying to stop my sword from being able to come across. So his wrist is catching my wrist behind the tsuka, behind the handle. Then he steps through. His hand is actually not pushing across, but entering straight through my center line, straight through my center line. So it's really his retracted hip right now that's pushing forward, driving from his right hip through his left hip, and driving my balance over and down. He then continues to put pressure. And what's actually happening now, there's a pulling action on my hand and a pushing action on my tricep. And what it's doing is actually hyperextending and locking my elbow. We'll do it again. From here, stepping right side, left side, stopping, stepping through with the hip, entering straight through Uchitachi's center. This is taking me through and automatically locking my shoulder, locking my hip, and then locking my elbow. So you want to practice that slowly with your partner in the beginning and eventually work up speed until you can feel comfortable cutting through the center line with your hand and taking the sword.
Hey! Ah! Ah! Ah!
Now we're going to explore advanced samurai test cutting, or sui monogiri, sometimes known as tameshigiri. We use a target made of rice straw, and it's actually a goza. It's a cover of a tatami mat. We wrap that, we roll it, wrap it, and then we secure it with rubber bands and soak it for 24 hours to give it a proper consistency so it doesn't scratch your blade as your sword moves through it. We're going to explore the more advanced section of the test cutting, which means the first one we're going to do is called inazuma. Inazuma means lightning strike, and so it's key that the cuts never truly stop moving. The sword continues to move properly back and forth through the mat. So please pay attention as Shimabukuro Sensei demonstrates this. Please try to catch his timing and speed.